I'm wearing the shirt because it's cool.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Listography. Jason, Joe, and Krams are here today, and it is 70's week. We've been doing our albums of the year videos every week. Every Friday we've been putting out another year, and we're just going to take a break from our usual ranking the record videos this week to talk about the 70's in sort of more general terms, give a bit of an overview, talk about some of the highlights and surprises of our lists, just whatever we feel like talking about in regards to the 70's. So I guess the first thing we're going to do today is we're each going to rank our winners. So not necessarily our 10 favorite records of the 70's, because, you know, it's possible that we liked a number 2 from one year more than a number 1 from another year.
Or a number 6.
Yeah. So we don't want to give too much away because somewhere down the line, we're going to do our favorite records of all time lists. But we're just going to rank the winners today. We thought that might be interesting. For anyone who hasn't watched all of the individual episodes, I do want to give a spoiler alert. We're going to be talking about all the winners. I do recommend going back and watching all of them individually so you can see the runners up as well. Who wants to start off?
I'll kick it, unless Joe has any objections.
If you want to kick it, kick it.
Got the kick-free guarantee from Joey. Here we go. So 70 through 79, let's just talk about what I'm dealing with my winners. 1970, I've got Led Zeppelin 3. 71, I've got Teaser in the Fire Cat by Cat Stevens. 72, Honky Chateau by Elton John. 73, Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. 74, On the Beach by Neil Young. 75, Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. 76, Trick of the Tail by Genesis. 77, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. 78, The Cars by The Cars, and 79, London Calling by The Clash. It is weird kind of looking at these because I would say if I did a top 10 list of the 70's, maybe only half of these would be in it. So I'm glad you kind of prefaced that. My number 10 is the easiest choice I made. It's my least favorite of these, although I do love it, and that's going to be The Cars debut from 1978. So that's my number 10. I think it's great. I think that was a weaker year, and it probably wouldn't have won any other years. Kind of feel the same way about my number 9, the winner of a very weak year, Neil Young's On the Beach. My number 8 is going to be Honky Chateau by Elton John. This or Goodbye Yellow Brick is my favorite Elton John. I love it. But hey, it's the 70's. I mean, it's the Colossus of Cloud decade. There's so much stuff. Number 7 is an album that probably confidently was in my top 10 albums of all time, maybe 10 years ago. Now has fallen a decent bit, but I still love it. And that's going to be Trick of the Tail by Genesis at number 7. Number 6 for me is kind of the polar opposite, an album that I didn't really like for a long time, but recently fell in love with for the last few years. That's going to be Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Then at number 5, probably my favorite Led Zeppelin album. I do know if it is or not, but we're going to wait for the video to let you guys find out. Zeppelin 3 from 1970. Number 4 is going to be London Calling by The Clash, one of the great punk albums of all time. Number 3, I'm sure you guys will be surprised that I have this as high as it is, as well as it winning 71 in general, and that's Teaser in the Fire Cat by Cat Stevens. I love this album. It plays to all of my personal desires and strengths, and kind of I write music solo a little bit too, and this is something that's probably along the same lines of what I would do. Number 2, Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen, one of the just great songwriting band efforts of all time. And then number 1, it sounds cliche, but Dark Side of the Moon is just, to me, one of the best albums of all time. It's not overplayed. It's not overhyped. It gets the credit it deserves because of just how damn good it is. So my favorite, best album of 1970's is going to be Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. And I used to have the shirt. I was going to wear it, but no idea where the hell it is.
There it is. I stole it.
I must have left it in the backseat of your car long ago.
Dark Side of the Moon, not one of the winners. In fact, it wasn't even in the top 5, but I'm wearing the shirt because it's cool. And it's still, for me, the 70's are so loaded that it cannot make my 73 list and yet be in my top 100 albums of all time. So there's a lot of stuff that got left off. There's a lot of albums from 73, 75, 77, 79 in my top 100 that didn't win. So like Kramzer said, this is not necessarily representative of my actual list, but so for me, I had After the Gold Rush by Neil Young in 1970, Zeppelin 4 in 71, Talking Book by Stevie Wonder in 72, 73 was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, obviously by Elton John, 74 Queen 2, 75 Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin, 76 Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder, 1977 The Controversial Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf. 78 was Van Halen's Debut, and 79 Armed Forces, the third album from Elvis Costello. All great albums. I think 9 out of the 10 are in my all-time top 100. The only one that might not be is the lead-off from 1970s After the Gold Rush. Great album by Neil Young, but Neil Young's not my favorite artist. I was actually a little surprised that it won in 1970, but this is just such a good kind of low-key album, just kind of perfect Neil Young-ness on this. Number 9, I'm going to have probably Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder, big sprawling double album. Maybe my 4th favorite Stevie Wonder album. 8th is going to be Van Halen's Debut in 1978. 7th is going to be Queen 2 by Queen. 6th, we're going to go with Armed Forces by Elvis Costello. I mean, these are all probably in my top 25 of all time. It's just, we're doing the 70s here, people. 5, we got Talking Book by Stevie Wonder. 4, Led Zeppelin 4. 3, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road in 73 from Elton John. Number 2, Bat Out of Hell. Just top 10, top 5 all-time favorite albums. Just, it hits everything for me. It's like my soul made an album. I love it so much. But 75, Physical Graffiti, Led Zeppelin, always in the conversation for my favorite album of all time. Just a monster double album, no bad songs, just incredible playing across the board. Fairly easy pick for me for my favorite. It's just a monster. So there you go. That's my 70s. There's a lot of other wonderful albums on here.
All right. So the 10 that I had throughout the decade, my favorite of 70 was All Things Must Pass by George Harrison. 71, I had The Ballad of Todd Rundgren. 72, I had The Slider by T-Rex. 73 was Closing Time by Tom Waits. 74, Late for the Sky by Jackson Browne. 75, I had Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan. 76, I had Station to Station by David Bowie. 77 was Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. 78 was Excitable Boy by Warren Zevon, and 79 was Damn the Torpedoes by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. The bottom for me of those is going to be Closing Time by Tom Waits. Obviously, it's great, and I love it because it won the year for me, but of all 10 of these, it's probably the one that I have the least sort of personal connection with. Number 9 is going to be Excitable Boy from Warren Zevon. One spot ahead of that, at number 8, I have Station to Station by David Bowie. Then at number 7, I have Damn the Torpedoes by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Number 6, I have All Things Must Pass by George Harrison. Number 5, I have Late for the Sky by Jackson Browne. Number 4 is Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Number 3 is The Ballad of Todd Rundgren by Todd Rundgren. Number 2 is Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan. My favorite album of the 70s is The Slider by T-Rex from 1972. I said in that video that it might be my favorite album of the 70s, and it is. It maybe top 5 of all time for me. Pet Sounds and maybe a couple Beatles albums are about all that I like more than it. So that is my favorite.
Wow, I would have hedged all my bets on George Harrison taking it all.
No.
I would have lost money.
Yes, you would have.
Of all those albums, there was only one year where we had a double winner, which is interesting. That was Rumors
77.
in 1977. Yeah.
Which you ruined with what I consider your biggest misstep, or at least the one I'm surprised the most at, with Meatloaf. And I think it's fine, but in 77, I mean, so many albums to me are passing over for Meatloaf. But if it's your soul, man, then yeah, I mean, you got to run with it. But that was a shock. And then 5 minutes ago was a shock to hear it at number 2 on the 70s list. But wasn't surprised you had Physical Graffiti at number 1.
For me, I think the biggest surprise of Kramzer's output was 1971's Teaser and the Firecat. Definitely didn't see that coming. I like it. I think it's cool that an album like that could, supplant all the awesome records of 1971, but I definitely did not see that coming in the least.
No, not at all.
Speaking of 71, Todd Rundgren winning in 71 for Jason threw me. I mean, I know you skew away from a lot of the major classic rock monuments and milestones, but there's so many in 71. Like, couldn't believe some of the ones you passed up to get Todd Rundgren on there, who's fine, but come on, dude.
I think Kram's biggest surprise for me, well, Not Fragile was a pretty big surprise, but I really did not expect Jesus of Coal to make your list. I've never heard you talk about Nick Lowe ever before, so that was cool.
Yeah, there's a few artists that, well, without blowing it or getting the cat out of the bag, when we get into the 80s, a lot of surprises coming from your end, Jason. Yeah, I'm going to be shocked by some of your picks, and I think others will too. But I'm kind of surprised that after we did the Clash video, that London Calling didn't do better with you guys in 79, because it seemed so overwhelmingly positive, the reviews and the reaction to it. And Jason, you had that great story about how it was like the only Clash album you knew for a long time, and you grew up with it and you loved it. And then nothing. You just let Tom Petty win with a mediocre Heartland album.
I am surprised about the Tom Petty winning. I was very surprised about that. I thought London Calling would definitely get a mention. I maybe could have put it on. 79 is a pretty loaded year, though. There's just because something didn't make my top 5 speaks nothing of the album. It could be, in 77, 75, and 73, I could have gone 10 deep probably in my top 100 of all time. And, there would be nothing from 78 or 70 on my list. When we do the best of the 70s, there might not be anything on 76, 78, or 70 because the years are just completely loaded.
Who are some of the artists that either didn't make any nominations or not nearly as many as you thought? Like, who do you want everyone out there in YouTube land to know that you love that may not have been represented on these lists?
I have a lot that didn't, and I kind of regret not sliding some of these artists into my top 5s, but there's just a battle every year. I didn't have a single Rush album in the 70s. I had no Aerosmith. I had no Yes, no Alice Cooper, Billy Joel, the Raspberries. Bruce Springsteen didn't even make it. ELO. There's just so many good, awesome artists that just got completely shut out. Five just isn't enough to really get the breadth of your interest, I don't think, because it's, at least for me, I kind of had the same artists. They release an album every year, so they just kept making my list over and over. You
were pretty heavy on Stevie Wonder, Steely Dan, Zeppelin,
Elton John. Yeah. For me, there's 3 that's really stand out. Like Joe said, there's tons more, but I think all 3 of these bands at one point in my life were my favorite band, and none of them cracked the top 5. And that's Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and Rush. Rush still has some opportunities ahead in the 80s. Deep Purple, there's one record of theirs in the 90s that I like a lot that has a very, very outside chance of cracking my list, but I don't think it will. And, Zeppelin, obviously, they're not going to be making any lists in the future. So we will see with the Rush how many, or if any, they're able to get on.
What about Robert Plant solo? No chance in the 80s for you?
Probably not, no.
For me, I had a few, and I know some of these artists may have gotten one album in a nomination, but Jethro Tull, Van Morrison, Joni Mitchell. For me, the big one is Yes. I don't remember getting Yes in my top 5 anywhere, but I absolutely love Yes. Everything about them. Just couldn't get them in, and that really hurt. How about, speaking of loaded years, best year, worst year? What do you got?
Best year for me, 75, 77, and 73 were all loaded, but I'm going to have to say probably 75. I mean, Born to Run didn't even make my list, and it's a freaking classic. So 75 was just so deep. Worst was 78, I think, pretty easily. Not a bad year. A little bit better because I found Kate Bush, but Van Halen 1, great album, but not quite as exciting as I think some of the other choices.
For me, the best is 71. 72 is a close runner-up. If I was going to do my actual top 10 of the 70s, it would almost completely be my 71 and 72 lists combined. 78's by far the weakest for me, I think.
I agree. 78 is the weakest, and I agree 71 is the best. I mean, just looking at 71, you got Zeppelin Zeppelin 4, Blue by Joni Mitchell, Who's Next, What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, LA Woman, Electric Warrior, Fragile, Aqualung, Hunky Dory, Imagine, Metal is pretty good Pink Floyd album. There's so many good, like the top 50 from 71 is just like a really good rock listen. The 70s, will it get better?
I will say that, we've already recorded half of the 80s, and I think it's pretty interesting where things are going and some of the picks we've made so far, and I'm excited to upload those for everybody to see.
I like the 80s a good bit, not as much as the 70s. 70s, confidently my favorite decade of albums, but I think my second favorite decade would probably shock most people, and we're not going to get to it for a while, so you're going to have to just keep on watching Album of the Year.
Thanks for watching, everybody, and thanks for watching all of the individual episodes week by week. Every week it seems like they get more views, so it's growing and doing well, so thanks for that. I know some people have been a little disappointed that we aren't including live albums, so we're also doing our favorite live albums of the 70s this week. That'll be coming up. And then we'll be having a little fun with talking about some of our favorite musicians of the 70s, sort of picking sort of fantasy bands lineups for you in another video this week. So hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell to get notifications. And we are upping our social media presence. So look down in the description. You'll find our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Give those a like as well. We're going to be doing a lot of sort of exclusive stuff, kind of behind the scenes things. Give you a peek inside, so check those out and leave a comment below. We will see you next time.